Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Today, we have a really fun show coming your guys' way. Really, next 2 days, Brian, we're just talking a lot of ball, which I'm really excited for. Look, we've previewed both teams. We've talked about this matchup extensively. We've been doing it the last 2 days. So today, we're talking keys to victory, and we've split it up into three different parts. We're talking overall keys to victory for the team because, fact of the matter is, we haven't seen this team play football in 2 weeks. So there's some things that we need to see for this game initially and some implications moving on for this Notre Dame football team. And then we're going to split it up, final two parts, and offense and then defense. And then tomorrow, Brian, we're giving our predictions. We're talking game records. And then the rest of the show, like I said last week, we're just two dudes sitting down talking ball, talking about the rest of the slate of college football. So next couple days here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast are going to be pretty fun to talk about.
Man, we almost were like, you know what? Screw it. We're not doing keys to victory today. We're going to preview games. There's so many games. This is going to be such a huge weekend for Notre Dame, Trev. That's the thing that you and I are talking about when we were kind of going over our show plan for the next couple of days was, good Lord, there's so many games that are going to have an impact on Notre Dame. Not only just Notre Dame slate. I mean, obviously for Notre Dame, it's important to us because we cover Notre Dame and you are Notre Dame fans for the most part, except for Archer and Insured by Big, who I haven't seen Insured by Big lately. I was disappointed by that. I thought he was going to come on this week, and obviously there's been a lot going on with his program. But, there's just a lot of games that are going to impact playoff resumes. I mean, Texas is out of the playoffs. Well, what if they beat number 9 Vandy this week to improve to 7-2? They've got A&M coming up. There's so many big games coming up this weekend that are going to either give teams a big boost for the playoff hunt or hurt and or kill their playoff chances in this season. So, Oklahoma and Tennessee are in a game where it's an elimination game for those two teams, So, I can't wait till tomorrow. But, before we do that, we got to focus on Notre Dame and Boston College. And so tomorrow we'll talk about, Notre Dame. We'll do our game predictions tomorrow, and then we'll talk about the Notre Dame, kind of the rooting guide that we want for Notre Dame. But today, Trev, we're going to talk about the keys to victory. And as we kind of dive into the overall team keys to victory, I think there's things that are important that apply to all phases of the game that serve as sort of a twofold purpose. One is specifically for BC. This is kind of things, attitudes that you need to have to thrive in this game. But the other thing is you're laying a foundation for who you're going to be. And we're going to kind of discuss this before each side of the ball. But as a team, you are going to you're going to set a standard, or not standard, but a set of tone for these final 5 games against Boston College. You're going to come out and say, hey, who we are as a football team is going to start to really be shown coming out of this second bye. You've been kind of building to that, the last 7 games. Your first bye was so early. You were cleaning up things from a game and then getting ready for another big game. And then it just was kind of like you said yesterday, Trev, it's like, dude, it's a bit of a grind this next bit. Now you get a chance to come out, sit down, do some self-scouting, do some personnel conversations. You got to get some guys ready to play who haven't played a whole lot because of injuries. You're hopefully getting some guys back who haven't played a whole lot, working them in. But now this is the stretch run. This is the final 5-game stretch run. And now is when you start to establish who you are as a football team. Not what you've been, but who you're going to be. And that stretch is going to really determine, I think, ultimately who this team ends up being. They're going to be defined more by how they play the next 5 games than they did the previous 7. Not so much from a playoff resume standpoint, but from a who you are standpoint. And that's going to be a big part. So a lot of our keys are part BC and part that. And the reason it's part that too, Trev, is because timing. This game is coming out of the bye. And everything we're talking about is important. Now is when you truly learn who you are. The second part is because BC's not a very good football team. I mean, they're capable of upsetting you. Anybody's basically capable of upsetting you in the Power 4 level in theory. But it's one of those games where the keys are like, dude, just do your job and you're going to win by 3 touchdowns at least. We could make this show really short, but that's why, as Trev and I were talking, it's like, let's incorporate not just keys to beating Boston College, but keys are going to be important to really laying a foundation for this stretch run. And that's what a lot of today is going to be about.
Well, I think that's extremely well said. And I think that's also something that we saw last year, Brian. Watch, of course, man. Hey, dude, you should do this for a living. But there is we saw a pattern of this last year to everything that you talked about. From Texas A&M to Louisville, it was kind of a grind. It was, okay, you find ways to win. You're figuring out your identity as a team on offense, defense, special teams, big picture as a program. And then what did we see, Brian? You go into the bye week after Louisville, then you beat Stanford 49-7. You beat Georgia Tech 31-13, Navy 51-14. Get a second bye week in there, and then you come out of that. Florida State 52-3, Virginia 35-14, Army 49-14. So what you're explaining is something that we've seen this team's ability to do. Now it's a little bit of a different situation because unlike last year, you have 2 losses. You still need some stuff to happen in front of you. But what you need to do if you're Notre Dame is you can't control the outcomes of, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, or Tennessee and Bama, or you can't control any of those. But what you can do is control how you look when you play. And that's what I loved about the outline when you sent it over to me, because that's what these 2 keys encompass. But what game are we talking about here, Brian? Notre Dame, Boston College, Saturday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. kickoff inside of Alumni Stadium. Really excited to see this one. This is Notre Dame's first trip back out to Chestnut Hill since 2020. That weird COVID season, but now they're meeting again. This is only their first meeting since 2022. They've had that break in 23 and 24. Now they're back at it. This should be a fun one. Right now, Notre Dame, the line hasn't moved much, if I'm being honest with you. On FanDuel, it's still at 28.5. So, yeah, there's still
interesting
out for it yet either, which is unfortunate. With the game, there's still no player props out for it yet either. So with a game like this between the number 12 team in the country and a team that's 1-7, I'm assuming we're going to see player props Friday night to Saturday morning, but hopefully they come a little bit sooner. But that's the game we're talking about today, Brian. Keys to victory for this and onward. So let's start with the overall team. And we've alluded to this a lot throughout the week, but the first key to victory for the team, offense, defense, special teams, all 3 phases, the entire coaching staff, be focused on the task at hand. It's going to be really important in this one.
Yeah, and this one has nothing to do with Boston College, right? Like that's the thing is, in the note I sent you, I say this is not about BC. This is about Notre Dame. In the first task, you almost kind of wish they were playing a better team coming out of the break in an attempt to be more focused. But at the same time, playing a team like this can also be good because you have to lock in and say, okay, guys, this isn't about BC. This is about us. And that was the thing that Marcus Freeman talked a lot about last year to his football team. Now, we learned a lot about that in some of the post-game videos. And then, of course, Here Come the Irish. We saw a lot of that talk in that video. So at the time, did we know how much of that was going on? I don't know. But that needs to be the talk this season, and not even from Marcus Freeman, but from the Notre Dame captains. It's what Drake Bowen needs to be talking about, and Don Schuler needs to be talking about, Donovan Heinisch and Billy Schrouth, even though he's not playing, still a leader of this football team. And Emil Wagner. It's like, hey, guys, this isn't about BC. This is about us. How we play this game, the focus we play this game, the task at hand is about us playing Notre Dame football. If we play Notre Dame football, the results will take care of themselves. And that's really what key number 1 is. And this infects every area of the football team. Are you locked in on doing your job? Are you locked in on staying within the system? Are you locked in on playing as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and playing to the standard that we set for ourselves? The other stuff is important, but it's a secondary aspect of this. If you do this, if you have the right mindset, the right focus, that we're going to come out here and we're going to take it to you, and we're going to show the college football world that we are the best team in college football. That's the mindset you have. And it doesn't even matter what's in front of you. You're just a bug on our windshield that we need to squash. You know what I mean? And this is about us and our destination and what we need to do. And in order to get there, we've got to do this right now in the moment. And that's really what it is. And if you do that, all these other keys we're going to talk about are going to kind of fall in line to that. And then number 2, part of that too, Trevor, is you are playing an inferior opponent. So you have to come out with a healthy respect for this team. This is not a very good team, Trev, but there's still parts of this team that can hurt you and make this game not look like it should which then can potentially knock you off course, potentially even upset you. You have to have a healthy respect for your opponent. And if you can do that on top of what we talked about, number one, that's going to set you up for a good place to come out and play Notre Dame football on Saturday.
I'm sure a lot of sports fans, Notre Dame fans specifically, have heard the phrase play down to your opponent. And we've watched this program do that. I've watched this program do it relatively consistently, not as much under this new regime, but I've watched them for the majority of my lifetime play down to the level of their opponent. How do you do that? Why does that happen? Seek to understand. And after a little bit of self-reflection, you understand it's because opponents get overlooked. Northern Illinois on that day was 2 points better than Notre Dame, but as a program, they're not 2 points better than Notre Dame. It's plain and simple. What you can't do, and we watched this happen in 2015, Notre Dame started to fall in the playoff rankings despite winning because they overlooked who they were playing. I think of the movie quote. You guys see the movie Creed, and he's doing that drill with Rocky in the gym once he finally agrees to coach him and is like, hey, every goal that you want to achieve is right there out in front of you. And your biggest opponent is the person staring at you in the mirror. You got to get him out of the way. Mm-hmm. And that's how I look at this final home stretch for Notre Dame. There is no opponent on the remaining part of the schedule that can hold a candle to the skill that you have, to the facilities that you have, to the infrastructure that you have as a football program. But in order to do justice in the final part of your schedule, you can't overlook who you're playing. That's when you overlook Lewis Bond. That's when he hurts you for a 50-yard touchdown. You overlook.
He's no Makai Lemon.
No.
Boom. No, exactly. What I'm saying is, you have that. Oh, he's no Makai Lemon. We shut down Makai Lemon. Lewis Bond's not going to hurt us. That's when Lewis Bond hurts you. That's a great point. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's and the rest of this schedule is chock full of those. Oh, this is Pitt. Man, this guy. This guy isn't Le'Veon Moss. Yeah, he's Desmond Reed. One cut and he might be gone. There's a lot of that. Oh gosh, riding a 4-game win streak heading out to Stanford. We got this in the bag. Well, Stanford kind of gives you a run for their money on their home turf. They're undefeated at home so far, something that we're going to talk about tomorrow. But BD, I love the don't overlook Boston College because everybody hears all the time about, Notre Dame played down to the level of their opponent. Why does that happen? It's when they get overlooked. Couldn't agree more.
Right. The third is, Trev, you have to be the more physical football team in this game. And that's always important because this isn't about you have to do this to beat BC. Notre Dame doesn't play super physical in this game. They'll probably still beat BC. You have to do that in order to dominate BC. But again, it's about setting a tone. Who are you going to be in the last 5 games? What kind of team are you going to be? Are you going to be the most physical team on the field? Because you weren't in week 1. You weren't really in week 3. And are you going to say, hey, we're going to take the fight to you? That is something that is not only about the players and the leadership, that's also something about the coaches. Do you prepare in a way that says we're going to take the fight to this team? Do you game plan in a way that says we're going to take the fight to this team? Do you then call plays in a way that says we're going to take the fight to this team? It's a top-down mentality and a top-down mindset that you have to come out in this game against Boston College and say, sorry, fellas, we got nothing but love for you. It's like the scene from you ever see Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Della Reese, so many great actors in it. Charlie Murphy's in it. Robin Gibbons in it. It's just a great movie. But the scene where the champ Jack Johnson goes out and he's about to fight. He goes, "Don't take this butt whooping personally." That's kind of what you're doing in this game. It's like, hey, fellas, don't take this beat down personally. We got to do what we got to do, and this is who we are. And we're going to show you that you just don't belong on this stage with us. And that is established by being the more physical football team. This is a BC team that tries hard. It is. But it's not a BC team that's necessarily big and strong and athletic like it has been in the past. They're big on offensive line, somewhat strong, but then they don't move well. Defensive line, they're big, they play hard, they're not super strong. So it's about taking the fight to them from a preparation standpoint with the coaches, from a game plan, scheme, philosophy standpoint with the coaches, a game plan standpoint from the coaches, and then the players carrying all that out. and saying, we're taking this one to you. Don't take this personally, but we got to do what we got to do because we're Notre Dame and you're not. And that's what it's really got to be.
Oh, agreed. Be the team that you're supposed to be. That's what the expectation is going to be when the committee looks at you on both sides of the ball. That's why this is a team key to victory. The committee has an idea and is already starting to formulate ideas of what they think they're going to see from Notre Dame this Saturday. First college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. So if you come out and you're not the more physically dominant team in the trenches, you're moving the line of scrimmage in your favor on both sides, then that's going to start to raise some questions. And so I agree with that one completely. Fourth key to victory for this team, Brian, is be the more disciplined team. I'm interested to see which way you go with this one because I have some thoughts on this too. But when you talk about being the more disciplined team, talk to us a little bit about that. Fourth key to victory.
There's a lot of aspects of this. Discipline, big picture, tends to kind of do with the things we've talked about, respecting your opponent, come out, play your game, right? Then there gets into the practical aspects of discipline, and that's what I mean here, which is kind of do your job, right? You know what you've been taught to do. You know you've been taught to step this way, to use your hands this way, to run your routes this way, to take angles to the football this way, to finish off plays this way. Do your job. Be disciplined. Don't go out there and try to make a point or make a statement or try to do something that you're not. Don't be. That's part of it. It's also part of it is don't be a football team that goes out there and makes the silly mistakes that allows them to stay in this game. Look, Notre Dame in a lot of ways has penalties have allowed teams to stay in games. You had a penalty early on against USC. First play of the game, you stuff them. Second play, you jump offside. So now all of a sudden that stuff on first down becomes null and void. It's now 2nd and 5. USC kind of keeps rolling, right? You have a play on that first drive where it's 3rd and 9. You've stopped him again, 3rd and 9. And you don't line up and you don't get the call in. And that's a discipline from a coaching standpoint. Chris Ash not getting the call in, Marcus Freeman not being ready to call timeout when he realizes that they're not lined up and USC's about to snap the ball. There's all types of ways where discipline, top-down discipline matters. Being a smart football team that doesn't get silly penalties. No false starts. In the last 3 games, Notre Dame has had 25 penalties in the last 3 games. They're averaging, they had 112 yards of penalties against Boston College. They had 55 yards of penalties against NC State and 96 yards of penalties against USC. They're averaging 87.7 yards per game in penalties. They rank 61st in the country, Trev, in penalties per game. And they rank 66th in the country in penalty yardage per game. Like, there needs to be a level of discipline that gets chopped down a little bit. Some penalties I don't mind. There are certain aggressive penalties where you're like, you know what? Like, I don't agree with that call. The guy was playing hard. I'm not mad at Jason Onye for the personal foul he got against. Was it NC State? Because it was Boise. This was was NC State, right? Which game was that?
It was Boise State. Are you talking about the roughing the passer one?
Yes. Yes. You know what? He was playing hard. I don't like that call. I'm not mad at you for that. Right? So when I look at the stat sheet, I'm like, okay, yeah, we had 11 for 111, but that's a BS call. I'm not going to have him change a thing. Like, because otherwise he can't play football anymore. If you can't play defense anymore, if that's a penalty. So there's certainly things like that where you say, hey, it's time to be the more disciplined team. Don't make silly mistakes. Look, if you throw a pick because they made a good defense or you had a wrong read, I can live with that. Don't force it. Don't fumble the football because you're trying to do too much. You're trying to do something you wouldn't normally do. Don't lose a guy in coverage because you're going for the big play instead of doing your job. Those are the things I'm talking about, just an overall level of discipline. Because if you are the more physical team and the more disciplined team, this is and the final point, Trev, point 5 that kind of goes with this is make them work for everything. And that's what discipline is. Make BC earn every yard they get. Make them earn every point they get. Because if you do that, I don't think this team has a much of a chance to really keep it close, much less pull the upset. Like, that's the thing, Trev, is if you're disciplined, you're going to make them work for everything. And then that's when BC's in big trouble.
Yeah, they made NC State's high-powered offense work for everything, and they never touched the red zone. That's just what this team is capable of doing. And with all due respect to Boston College, they don't have the overarching talent on offense as what NC State has. You
or
know, you want to
defense
have
even
no,
athletically.
no. My biggest takeaway with staying disciplined, I agree with everything that you said. Some of it is just from you take the X's and O's out of it, and you look at this as a college football game that has rivalry implications to it. I would probably say more so the fans than the players on the field. It's not like a USC type of deal. But taking Boston College out of this, because I don't want to accuse them of being this type of football program. But the way that I look at this is you have a 1-7 football team that has basically already been knocked out of bowl contention, barring something crazy. And one of those crazy things includes winning out on the rest of your schedule, being 5-7, and then keeping your fingers crossed that there's not enough 6-6 football teams out there.
Right.
So bowl season for Boston College is likely. Now, when I look at this game, it's a 1-7 football team playing at home versus a team that is fighting and clawing their way back into, the opportunity to host a home playoff game. Being disciplined means keep everything between the whistle. Notre Dame is the clear better football team, and I don't think that it's going to be a mystery to their players once this game kicks off that they are the better football team. Be smart. Part of being disciplined is not doing some of the things we have seen in the past from Notre Dame players, making it extracurricular. A little bit excessive on the celebrations. I allude to what happened at the end of the USC game. Little different, but there's just some things that you can't really do in games like this, and that's part of being disciplined. Boston College is a team with literally nothing to lose.
And they will try to bait you.
Yes.
They will try to bait you. They're going to try to get in your head, talk trash. Like USC tried that with Jeremiah Love. And every time they did it, what did Jeremiah do? Just, and then when he would make a big play, he'd let them know about it, right? But you've got to channel that and funnel that in the right direction, But that's a great point, Trevor, because they don't have anything to lose. Literally, they have nothing to lose. They lose the football game, fine. Everybody in the world expects you to lose this football game. Yeah. You honestly, deep down in your soul, you're going to lose this football game. So the only way we can really pull off this upset is if we can just throw some haymakers.
Yes.
And run some trick plays and get in their face and do all these different things to try to get Notre Dame out of playing their game. Because what does all this come down to, Trev? Be focused on the task at hand, respect Boston College, be more physical, be more disciplined, make them work for everything. That's what playing Notre Dame football is. You do those things, and now it becomes our dudes versus your dudes, and that's when Notre Dame dominates. And so if they can avoid falling into that trap, if they can avoid falling into, this idea of, hey, we're going to be, we're going to go out here and we're going to get in your face and we're going to talk trash to you because we're Notre Dame. And that's not Notre Dame football. Now I'm not talking about not being passionate and not talk that talk, but it's got to be done in the right way. You know what I mean? It can't be something that's taking you out of your game. And if they do that, they're going to be fine in this game, Trev. I mean, they are the better team. But the big thing for me, the discipline is a big part of this for me, because you've seen Notre Dame has really played better football lately from the standpoint of defensively, the results are better. They're playing a style that fits them better. Offensively, they're still putting up yards and points, but they haven't been playing super disciplined football. They're still pretty sloppy in a lot of ways. We talked about the penalties. We've talked about some of the turnovers. You're like, what was that? Some of the plays you're giving up on defense, it's just an utter lack of discipline. Some of the penalties you're getting, you're like, dude, seriously? Really? Come on, dude. Not trusting your technique, not trusting yourself, not playing within the system. And those are things they just have to avoid. They really are.
Well, Brian, I know that there's a super chat real quick.
Yeah, so we're not doing a mailbag today, but we did get a super chat, and I thought it'd be cool to kind of get it in now, as before we dive into the specifics of the keys to victory. But this is from Alan Watson. Alan, thank you so much. He goes, "Afternoon, gentlemen. If you could replace one team for this year only on the schedule, who would it be, and who would replace them? I choose USC and Vandy." So basically, he's saying he'd get rid of USC and he'd put Vandy on the schedule. I have no problem putting Vandy on the schedule, but I'm not taking USC off of the schedule to put Vandy on the schedule. If I could take anybody off the schedule and add a team, that's a good question. I mean, we've kind of got, you got Miami on the schedule. It's a good question. I would have said early in the season it'd be nice to get Florida State this year early on because it would have been nice to finally play them when they're good. That would be nice. I mean, that'd be a fun year to play Michigan. You know what I mean? So, but I'd probably say I would take Syracuse off the schedule, and I would replace them with Clemson. No, not Clemson. I'd replace them with, I mean, heck, in this year, Virginia. But I'd want to replace them with somebody from either the SEC, Big Ten, or ACC that's kind of battling for a playoff spot. Play some ranked opponent. Maybe like who would be, Trev? I know exactly who would be. Georgia Tech. Get Georgia Tech to come back home after you go play them last year. Team that you get to kind of go eliminate from playoff contention, or at least eliminate from being ahead of you. You get a better little notch on your resume a little bit. And the reason I take Syracuse off is I was looking forward to the Syracuse game before Steve got hurt. I mean, they were 3-1. They had just beat Clemson. They had just blown out Clemson. They had beaten UConn, who's turned out to be a pretty quality football team. Like, that would have been a much better game. They'd probably be, coming into game 11, 7-3 maybe, 8-2 maybe coming into that game if Steve wasn't hurt. I just don't care about that game now. They're awful. It's going to be an ugly game, and I would have much rather played somebody that was really good and somebody that's in contention this season. So that's why I'll go with that. And SEC team, Vandy would have been fine. That's a good one too. I don't really care about playing Vandy, to be honest with you. I think Georgia Tech could be one because it would kind of continue your ACC dominance, and it'd be knocking off a team in your league that, a team in your, the league that you're, kind of affiliated with that's a contention of staying ahead of you.
Yeah, mine would have been Georgia Tech or Louisville, because I know that they're also kind of nipping on the heels there in playoff contention as well. And it would have been cool to see Notre Dame kind of put the nail in that coffin as well. And I would have been okay with taking off either Syracuse or Stanford. So,
yeah,
that's where I'm at with that one.
You'd really want to give up that trip to San Francisco this year, Trev?
I mean, for selfish reasons, I would love to go out to San Francisco.
Okay.
That's going to be fun. I've never been out there, but from a watching the game standpoint, I feel like I'm going to get more benefit going out to San Francisco than Notre Dame is going to get benefit going out to San Francisco this year. So, but hey, I'm pumped for it. Believe me, that'd be it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm pumped to go out there.
Yep.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for part one of today's show. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to talk keys to victory on offense. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the CFB Nation channel. Vince Siderio and I are going live tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then I also believe Bill Bender and Bill Troshi are going live at 9:30 in the morning tomorrow to preview this upcoming weekend slate of games. So a lot of stuff happening on the CFB Nation channel tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed. And as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, in part two of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel, we're talking Notre Dame keys to victory on offense over the Boston College Eagles. Haven't seen this offense on the field in about 2 weeks, and last time we did, it was really, really rainy and not ideal conditions to throw the football. However, had their way on the ground. So, keys to victory on offense, man.
Well, I mean, it begins, Trev, first and foremost with the big picture aspect that we've been talking about, right? Like, this is about playing your game. This is about coming out and getting yourselves right for this game, which then leads into the stretch run. It's not just about, okay, you have to do these four things, and we're going to have 4 keys today. You have to do these 4 things if you want to have a hope of beating Boston College. Like, that's not really what it's about. It's more so about, like, okay, who are you going to be? It goes back to part 1. Who do you want to be the rest of the way? Do you want to be a team that's going to play physical football? Just because you don't have Billy Schrouth in the game doesn't mean you can't be physical anymore. Just because you don't have Ashton Craig in the game doesn't mean you can't be physical anymore. We saw Joe Otting play pretty physical last week. Sullivan Absher 6'8", 327. You know what I mean? Like, he can play physical football too. It's about a demeanor that goes all across the field, blocking your tails off, running routes hard, finishing off runs, being physical up front, quarterback being mentally tough, being decisive with what you do. There's an overall mindset that says, okay, you need to come out and shake off sort of that funk that was from USC. Get that behind you so we don't have to worry about that anymore. We can say, look, it was a rainy day. It was an ugly day, blah, 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 blah. They weren't sure if they're going to kick off on time, et cetera, whatever. Threw your pass game off. All right, fine, cool. All right, now it's time to move forward. Put that behind you. And I think that is going to be a big key. And that's as much mental as it is anything. That's as much mental as this schematic and philosophical and execution and all things that we're going to talk about that are important to winning. It has to start right there, Trev, with the mindset of we're going to come out and we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be confident, and we're going to absolutely obliterate you in everything that we do. I think those are very, very important keys. That's a very, very important overall key before we get even into the specifics of what you need to do against Boston College.
It's the conversation around a faceless opponent. Notre Dame is not going to be able to execute on the keys to victory that you have laid out here if they don't, overarching, big picture, go out and execute the way that they're supposed to. Come out with the identity that you're the better team. Because there are things that this team still has to work on. This isn't just about winning, beating Boston College. It's about, continuing to build on your foundation to prepare yourself for a run in the postseason. And Brian, like always, the first way that they're going to be able to do that against Boston College is if you come out and start fast. And there's a bunch of different ways that you could go with this one, but starting fast for this offense, again, every week it has a different meaning. And this week I have a feeling I know where you're going with this one, but man, if you're going to come out and start laying the lumber on Boston College, you got to do it early.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to let this team hang around at all. I mean, you need to put this one away very early. And there's aspects of this that are good for you and aspects of this that are good for them. Or what's your perception of them? And the part that's good for you is it's what we talked about. It's the way to start, the way to put shake off the dust from the USC game is to say, okay, we're going to come out there and just take it right to you, just like they did against Purdue, just like they did against Arkansas, where it's not coming out scoring on your first drive. It's coming out on scoring on your first drive, your second drive, your third drive, your fourth drive, and just really bearing this football team. You're capable of it. Yeah. But you've got to really come out and say, hey, we're going to really punish this football team because we're going to let them know right now that you guys are not in our league. You do not belong in the field with us. You are not a team that has any business kind of being in a 4-quarter game with us, and not in an arrogant way, but just from because that's who we are and that's who you are. And so those are things that I want to see that I think are going to be very important to this game. And honestly, BC for the most part this season has been pretty decent early on. They give up, they've only had, I think, 1-2 teams score more than twice in the first quarter. So you got to really say, guys, I'm sorry, I hate to do it to you, but we're going to put this thing away pretty early. We're going to come out here and we're going to really take the fight to you. And because they're not a great second half team, Trev, they're not. I mean, you look at, they got outscored. It was 20-20 at halftime against Boston, against Stanford, and then they lost in the second half. They had a 21-14 lead against Michigan State at halftime and then lost. They were up 17-14 at halftime against Cal, and Cal, I think, scored the next 14. It was, Pitt blew them out pretty easily. Clemson blew them out pretty easily. UConn, they were up 20-17 at halftime. And only scored 3 points in the second half, lost 38-23. And then this past week, it was 17-10 at halftime, and they did okay in the second half. But that was more about Louisville than anything. You need to put this team away early. Let them know right now that you have no shot. And that gets yourself into a good rhythm. That gets your pass game's going to get into a good rhythm. You need to get your offensive line into a good early rhythm because this is your first game with this alignment. This is your first game with Sullivan Absher at left guard and Joe Wadding at center. This is how is Anthony Knapp and Sullivan Absher's communication going to be? How is Sullivan Absher and Joe Wadding's communication going to be? I expect that part will probably be a little bit better because they've been on the second team a lot together. So they've had to communicate before, but you've got to come out and say, okay, yeah, we're Notre Dame, we're O-line U, and we lose one stud and we just put another stud with less experience on the field. That's just how it goes. We lose Charles Jagasaw, man, that sucks. I've heard people say, man, if Notre Dame had Charles Jagasaw, they'd be a different team. I'm like, yeah, I don't think Gerby Lambert's really been their problem this year. You know what I mean? Like, you lose a stud like Jagasol, you put another stud with less experience on the field. And now when Jagasol comes back, Gerby's going to have more experience than Jagasol does. You know what I mean? So, but it is about, like, take that excuse out of your minds right away. So-and-so's not on the field. Don't matter. Doesn't care. Don't care. Doesn't matter. I got those backwards a little bit, you know? But, like, look, O-line's fine. CJ's fine. Receivers are fine. Get it rolling. And that gives you confidence, which is where momentum comes from. And then the second part is it lets BC know right away, hey, guys, I'm sorry. You don't have a chance today. We're not Louisville. We're not even Pitt. You know, like, we're on a different level, and we're going to show you. You have to have that mindset. The longer you let BC stay in this game, the more confident they start thinking, like, hey, we can do this. We got a shot. You got to bury them immediately and get yourself into a good rhythm.
I'll even add a little bit to that. Out of both halves, you know, I mean, sometimes you just let a team get into halftime and lick their wounds. And depending on what you do in the first half, it's, to your point, Brian, you let a team hang around long enough, they get a false sense of confidence. So if Notre Dame does what they need to and they handle business in the first half, Boston College is able to go in at halftime and say, all right, let's try to make this as close as we can. Let's fight to the finish here. And if Notre Dame's offense comes out and starts rolling again out of the halftime break, it's just going to really put it down quickly. So I'm with you. Second thing, Brian, you already mentioned it a little bit ago, but one of the players to get going early and to get them in a rhythm early is CJ Carr. He is coming off of one of his weirder performances. I'm not in the camp of people that says it was bad and he needs just this immaculate turnaround, but you know, he did struggle last game. Yeah, weather played a factor, and so and when I'm talking about he struggled last game in comparison to the other six, you know, relatively. So it's not the same, but he is a player that Notre Dame has to get going because this offense can't reach its full potential unless CJ Carr is humming on all cylinders once November is over. And so he is a player that Notre Dame's offense is going to have to get going early in this one, Brian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is something that is a coaching thing. This is something where Mark Denbrock, good Lord, I can't even speak today. Mike Denbrock needs to come out of this game and say, hey, look, it's important for us to get CJ in an early rhythm because he's got to shake off that rust. He's got to calm down, get himself into the flow of the game. What are the things that we've looked at our self-scout? What are the things CJ likes the most? What are the things he's best at? And then let's get him going there. And honestly, if you go back to a lot of games, when CJ gets to throw early deep balls, he kind of gets cooking. You know, like, and deep balls aren't just goes and posts. It's also the deep outs. You know, you think of the Arkansas game. I think the first deep shot he hit in that game was a corner route to Jeremiah Love. I think was the first deep shot he hit in that game. And then you think of like the deep out cuts against I think it was Boise, you know, where and then NC State, he's hitting deep shots down the field against NC State. Purdue obviously was the deepest shot of all deep shots to start the game. But, like, get him into that early rhythm. That's what he likes to do. Move the pocket a little bit. Simplify the reads at times. Get the screen game going. You know, like, you look at Louisville did a great job of this, and Pitt did as well. Get to the perimeter with your backs because they're way more athletic than BC's second and third level players. We've seen Notre Dame. I did a video breakdown last week of this at Irish Breakdown at boards@irishbreakdown.com where I showed how Notre Dame doesn't really do the perimeter run like people. They don't do tosses, toss cracks. They ran like 2 toss cracks against Arkansas. That's the only time we've seen them really toss the ball. They don't do like outside zone like the Broncos used to with like a full pitch stretch to the sideline. You know, this is not what they do. They attack the perimeter with their throwing game, especially to the backs. This is a game for that. These are throws that CJ can do well. You know, you get the tunnel one side, the swing screen to the other side. You know, slip screens or now screens, just things that allow him to say, man, you don't got to think about it. Just catch that ball and get that out to the guy. And you know, we'll get you into a nice early rhythm. And then, of course, doing some things. He does have to make reads and get into the flow of the game. But, you know, I felt like last year, Riley, you know, and Marcus Freeman talked about this, like Riley didn't really get, like he wasn't in the game until he had to take a hit. So you wanted to run him early. And it's just like when he took a hit, he was like, okay, now I'm ready to play. I feel like CJ is kind of like he doesn't really feel good in the game until he gets to throw some balls down the field. You know what I mean? Like that's just what works for him. So this is going to be about Mike Denbrock's game plan early on, helping CJ to get comfortable. That doesn't mean he has to throw on 7 of the first 8 plays of the game. It just means whenever you throw, whether it's a lot early or or late, and that's going to depend on what does BC come out and do defensively. Are they going to come out and play a lot of cover one, down in the box, maybe bracket Malachi Fields, go one-on-one to the field and get the extra safety into the box, those type of things. I don't know what that's going to be, and that's going to determine sort of your run-pass volume early on. But whenever you do pass, you want to do things to give CJ a chance to get comfortable and into an early rhythm. That's going to be a very important part of this game. And then CJ, for his part, has to execute that. I mean, there was stuff that he could have done against USC to get into a rhythm. He just missed the throws, and so he's going to have to execute, because if he gets going early, that's how all these other things, blow him out early, start fast. That if CJ gets going early, you have no chance as a defense. None. No chance to stop.
Not with this run game.
You just better hope Notre Dame's Notre Dame's defense doesn't show up. And you can win a shootout like A&M did, but you have no chance of consistently stopping this offense if CJ Carr's heating up. So I think that's an important piece. And obviously the O-line, you got to protect them. There's all things about it that go into catch the ball, run good routes, but primarily this is about game plan to help him get comfortable with the thought process of let's get him comfortable in a way that goes at BC. But then, because to me, getting comfortable isn't throw a bunch of balls behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of hitches. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what are the things that he likes to do. With CJ, sometimes getting him into the flow of the game is let's maybe design an early deep shot, that because he loves to throw the deep ball. And that's when he's like, all right, cool. That's his version of Riley Leonard running quarterback power to get himself into a game. CJ's like, I want to launch one like 60. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a big part of it, because if he gets into a rhythm, Trev, this offense is going to absolutely annihilate Boston College. If he gets into a funk and he's missing reads and missing throws, that's when you start to say, okay, I'm a little curious how this one's going to go now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that Boston College has the skill on defense to make a Notre Dame a one-dimensional offense. I don't, with all due respect to Boston College. The only thing that can make Notre Dame one-dimensional if there's lapses in execution on their end. And that's encompassing between CJ Carr, between the interior of the offensive line, which is our third key. We mentioned that already. It's the first time that they've been out there together, Anthony Knapp next to Sullivan Absher, and all those things are true. But all of that is geared towards Notre Dame being the balanced offense we know that they can be. And I just don't think Boston College has the skill in the secondary to take away Malachi Fields and Jordan Faison and Eli Raridan and Will Pauling or Jaden Greathouse or KK Smith if we see
hopefully
him this
KK,
week.
Hopefully Cam or Micah. Yes, exactly.
Or J Love and JD out of the backfield. Like, it's just there's too many weapons for them to cover. I mean, that would be a struggle for a good defense. It just would. So I'm with you completely. Notre Dame has to make sure that they execute at a high level. It goes back to what we talked about in the first segment of the show about discipline. If this offense remains disciplined and they execute at a high level and they don't shoot themselves in the foot and they don't put themselves behind the six, because the one thing for this group that I want to see, and it also feeds into our fourth key to victory, is I want to watch them not get off of schedule. And if they do, because inevitably it'll happen, at some point they'll lose a yard, there will be a false start or a penalty, a hold that will put them behind the sticks. You have to find some answer to that, because the one thing we've seen from this offense last month is when they get off schedule, the drive is essentially over.
I'll come back to situational football in a second. I want to talk about the offensive line in this game, because I do think it's very important that they establish itself. And this is as important as anything else you're going to do offensively, because this is your O-line probably for the remainder of the regular season, potentially for the rest of the season. I mean, who knows? They haven't told us when Billy Schrauth is going to be back. They haven't told us when Charles Jagasaw is going to be back. So until told otherwise, this is your unit. If you're going to make a run at the championship, this is your unit. Joe Otting's out there for the rest of the year. Like barring some disaster, he's out there for the rest of the year. This unit's got to start taking some pride in who they're going to be consistently. That's been the frustrating thing with this offensive line this year. Last year's offensive line was inconsistent from an execution standpoint, but once it got solidified against Navy, they played hard every week. Even when they got beat, they got whooped by Georgia physically, but they played their butts off. They battled, which is what opened up enough opportunities to go out there to, Riley to go out there and make the play he made to set up a score and to be able to put it away late in the game and convert those third downs because they battled their tails off. You know what I mean? Like they got beat, I think, by Penn State most of the game. But you know what? They stepped up and battled, and especially the second half, it was arguably a stalemate. And in some situations, you're like, boy, I think they won that drive right there. So they didn't always play pretty. They didn't always play sexy. They weren't super, super talented. But the one thing that line did, once it finally got settled, was it played hard. This offensive line not only is inconsistent from an execution standpoint, it's been kind of inconsistent from a physicality standpoint. Not that they've ever played soft. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think I could go back to a game past Miami where I felt like that was the case. But there's been different levels of we're going to come off and kick your butt. Yeah, last week was great, but we didn't see that against NC State. They took a lot of blows against NC State, didn't deliver a lot of blows against NC State. And that's why the run game sputtered. I want to see them come out and just say, what you saw against USC is who we are. Not who we are when in big games, not who we are against our rival, but who we are. This is how we play. This is the standard for Notre Dame offensive line play. You play with great technique. You play with great intelligence. You play with great discipline. And that's all inside of you play with great physicality and great fire. I want to see that in this game, Trev, because here's the reality. This group of skill players, in my opinion, when you all-encompassing skill players, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, is as good as anybody in the country. Does that mean that Notre Dame's receiving corps is number one? No, it's not. I don't think this receiving corps is as good as Ohio State's, for example. I'm talking all-encompassing. I think Notre Dame's better at running back. Tight end, quarterback's close, tight end's close. But as a whole, I'll say this group can stack up against anybody. There is no better running back room in college football, and that's not even close, right? So it comes down to, all right, so is the offensive line going to be able to play in a way that allows this skill talent to flourish week after week? Because this is the heart and soul of the team, this unit right here. And if Notre Dame's a championship team, this line will play like a Notre Dame line is supposed to. Don't make mistakes. That's fine. You'll get beat sometimes. That's fine. But you're playing with great discipline and great physicality every snap, playing with that chip on your shoulder every snap. If you do that, there's not a team on your schedule, and there aren't many teams in college football that can keep this offense under 40. If the line is playing the way it's capable of. Now, against USC, run game-wise, phenomenal. Pass game, wasn't great. But there has to be a level of physicality and cohesiveness that we need to see from this line that we haven't consistently seen this season, and it's got to start in this game. And if they don't play well, that's how mistakes happen. You get off schedule, you make mistakes. CJ's dropping back, he's getting ready to throw. You whiff on a backside block, boom, ball comes out. BC recovers to 12. That's how BC stays in this football game. But if the offensive line plays well, it's going to be a wrap. This game will be over by halftime.
Well, that's something that you and I talked about in the preseason, man. Is we contended that Notre Dame skilled talent could compete with anybody else's skilled talent in the country. And that was before other players broke out on some other teams and others didn't work out on some other teams. The offensive line is at the core of that. I agree with you 100%. And if the offensive line plays well, and if they get CJ Carr in a rhythm, that's going to put them in a position, Brian, for the fourth key to victory to find some situational answers. And we're talking third down, short yardage, red zone, because if there's one major knock on this group that has nothing to do with skilled talent, it's this. Finding answers down in the red zone, not leaving points out on the field, being able to convert short yardage. It's going to be a huge, huge key moving forward, and something that isn't just specific for the Boston College game. Yeah. You have to start finding answers now and put those answers to work, really the remaining however many games are going to play in 2025.
Yeah, this is a key for both of those and also BC, Trev, because if you look at some of the things about Notre Dame, on paper they look fine. They're 31st in the country on third down. They're 35th in red zone touchdown percentage. They're 110th in red zone overall. but they're 30. They're 35th in touchdown percentage. They're 25th in turnovers. Like those things look fine. They're not bad. Just some modern improvement is really needed, and I don't necessarily agree with that because when I look at this team and like we'll start third down, right? So we'll work towards getting to the goal line. And first and foremost, third down, you say, well, look, they're 46.2%. That's pretty good. That ranks 31st. And if you look at like last year, so right now Notre Dame's certainly better than they were last year at 46.2. Last year they were at 41.3, and that team went and played for a title. Well, I don't know that this team has last year's defense. We think it might get to that point in time, but right now I can't confidently say that that's the case. But if you look at third down, percentage 46.2, last year 46.2 would have ranked you 17th in college football. But here's the deal. You haven't been good in the games that matter, in my opinion, at least not enough of them. You were 27.3% on third down against USC. You were 46.7 against A&M, and you scored a bunch of points. You were 44 against Miami, and I think 2 of those came on the same drive. But you weren't good in the moments that mattered most on third down in that game. And then you had 60% against Purdue, 60% against Arkansas. That raises the number up quite a bit. You're only 44 against Boise. You're only 42.9 against NC State. Your last 3 games, you've been, I think, Trev, it's going to be maybe even sub 40 the last few games. So you're 13 of 34. The last 3 games, you're at 38.2% your last 3 games. You've been feasting on big plays, but you haven't been an efficient offense. And big plays are great, and this team's going to be a big play offense, but the efficiency has to be there. And they weren't efficient in the last game. They haven't been efficient in the last 3 games, and they're going to have to figure that out. Not only against BC, but and so what does that mean? Getting better third down answers. Number one, situational part of being good on situational football is getting better on first down. We've talked about that a lot. They're great on second down. They're a little up and down on first down. Get better on first down. Put yourself in better situations. Put yourself in more manageable third down situations. When you get in third down, have a better personnel plan on third down. I feel like Notre Dame has some plays they like on third down, but they don't have enough players they like on third down or that they go to on third down. Malachi Fields needs to be more of a third down weapon for this offense. And but look, when you get to third down, teams are going into the boundary and they're playing tight on him and they're taking away the quick game. Fine. So is your answer, well, I guess we just can't use Malachi Fields on third down anymore. Or maybe you move him around, you put him in a slot, you motion him, you do different things with him to where you can get him more involved in the offense. I want to see some personnel answers on top of some schematic answers. And that to me is going to be a big part of being effective on third down. We get it. You like throwing the quick out with sprint out on third down. Great. We've seen it. Every opponent's seen it 87 times this season. A bit hyperbolic. But it's been a huge go-to throw for them. All right, what are some answers you have other than that? Because that hasn't been working quite as well in the last couple of games. You missed one against NC State. You missed one against USC on that route concept. Missed 2 against NC State on that route concept, although only 1 was on third down. So that's a big thing for me is that. Same thing with red zone. I don't feel like Notre Dame's they have a plan. It would be disrespectful to say they don't have a plan. I don't like the plan they've had so far in the red zone.
That's
a big key.
My whole thing in the red zone is stop being cute. Like you don't overthink third down, and you're just going to run the same sprint out route concept. But then the red zone is where it's like, all right, let's send CJ Carr out in motion and run the wildcat. Let's take some of our bigger bodies off the field and then bunch in Will Pauling and Jordan Faison to try to seal the edge. Like sometimes down in the red zone, it's just our guys are better than your guys. You have a 6'4", 225-pound boundary receiver and a 6'7", 252-pound tight end. And I don't know how many red zone targets that Eli Raridan has gotten, but I would be willing to bet that the number is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Malachi Fields. I mean, I think it was the Irish Access video that they put out. He was begging Mike Denbrock to throw that fade again to him when he scored against Boise State. And on the video, Malachi Fields was like, don't overthink this. Just throw it up again. Don't overthink this. Just throw it up to me again. Now, obviously, player wants to record a touchdown. I get that completely. But I do think that there's some truth to that. It doesn't have to be, all right, like let's have CJ Carr start in the shotgun and then have him hop over to shadow over the left guard, but still have him clap so that Jeremiah Love gets a snap. Hey, if you're going to run Jeremiah Love, just get him going downhill. The interior of your offensive line is now 6'8", 327, 6'4", 310, or 308, and 6'7", 335. Just don't overthink it. And that's my biggest thing with the red zone.
Yeah. And that's as you get into sort of the scoring zone, into the closer to the field, which is an important piece. But I think there's things they can do outside the red zone, like outside the scoring zone. So there's the scoring zone. Some people call it the green zone. People call it different things. It's like kind of like 10-yard line.
10 and in.
10 and in. Some call it 5 and in. It's different things. You can run different things at 9 and in, 5. Everybody does it differently. But that 10 to 20 to 25 zone also has been a bit of an issue for Notre Dame this year that they need to get a little bit better at. And if they can get better at that, then I think this team is going to – you don't have to score from the 2 with some of that stuff. You know, you get down to the 11-yard line, that's where you were talking about, Trev. You have more room to work with your pass game to maybe get some scores. You know, maybe now you're throwing the fade to Malachi or Eli, or you're doing something to create a boot action or some high-low action to – run guys off and bring somebody else on a crosser route to get them free into the end zone. When was the last time we saw Notre Dame's have a guy catch a crosser route in the red zone and run into the end zone? I see that every week in college football. Like doing some things like that to try to utilize the levels that still exist from the 13 to 25 zone. So I think that's part of it as well. They had a plan. It hasn't worked super great. Now the bye week is about adjusting that plan, thinking outside the box a little bit more and being willing to say, okay, what are some things that we're not doing? Yes, we're spreading teams horizontally a ton, but we're not doing enough spreading teams vertically right now in the pass game, especially the red zone. To understand what that means, a vertical stretch is you're basically stretching them across. A horizontal stretch is what you call stretching a team across the field. So if you're running 4 verts, that's technically a horizontal stretch because it's more left to right. A vertical stretch is usually some sort of layers where you're stretching a team vertically, meaning so a flood concept is a vertical stretch. You got an outside go route, you got a deep out cut, and you got an out cut underneath it. So you're stretching them vertically, low to high. An over the middle sort of high-low concept where you got a crosser and a dig and a post. That's a vertical stretch. So that's what that means. And Notre Dame does a lot of horizontal stretches. Where a lot of vertical stuff, a lot of comebacks. They need to work some more levels concepts into the route combinations, especially over the middle of the field. And yeah, sometimes it'll be banging backside digs and ends, which they've thrown those. But some things where maybe you're running some people off to get somebody underneath and threaten them more in that regard are things that I would like to see Notre Dame do, as opposed to just a quick, immediate cross dig. Maybe there's some sort of delay, some pivot, and then he comes underneath where you're letting them clear out, and then you're letting Jordan Faison catch the ball on the run and then let him go do his thing, right? So there's a lot of different things like that I think this offense can start incorporating that I've seen Mike Denbrock do in the past that would make the red zone offense a little bit more effective in all aspects. And then, of course, figuring out what your scoring zone is going to be better. Whether it's 11 personnel, spreading teams out more, whether it's – I don't know that 11 personnel is the answer. I think there's lots of potential answers. But whatever you're going to do, you've got to have some different things. And sometimes, to your point, Trev, it's, dude, just that guy can't cover Eli Raridan. And if you can, tip your cap to him and we'll settle for the field goal. This guy can't cover this. Using some misdirection to – get teams to overplay one thing. Like there's so little of that from Notre Dame. And I don't think a read zone pull like they did against USC on the interception is necessarily a play that's getting them. I feel like using Jordan Faison to motion down and fake a reverse is going to have a greater impact than trying to ask Jordan Faison to seal the edge against a 280-pound defensive end. There's some different things there where, they got to look at what they've done. This hasn't worked. Let's come up with some better things schematically. But then also this comes back to the previous point. There comes a point in time your offensive line says, Coach, there's times when the 2017 offensive line would be like, Coach, just freaking run it behind us. We don't need to get all cute with this stuff. Just give the ball to whoever and tell them to get behind us. And they would just wedge and drive the defensive line off the ball into the end zone. Like that's part of it too, is sometimes It's like you just got to come off and just kick somebody's butt. Get low, drive that guy off the ball. And there needs to be some of that too. So it's all encompassing, but playing better situational football is going to be huge for this team, Trev. Absolutely huge. Because then, ultimately, here's why. More field goal drives turn into touchdowns. That's the red zone. But here's the thing about the situational efficiency. Being better on first down. The more you move the chains, the more plays you get to run, the more chances you have to run plays, the more chances that your home run hitters hit home runs. Sometimes it's play 4 where the home run gets hit. Well, but if you weren't efficient on your second, first down and third down on plays 1, 2, and 3, you never get to play 4 on that drive. And that's what I'm
agreed to. Yeah, giving them a bigger sample size to work with. I could not echo that anymore. Fact of the matter is, and I think the last 3 games, I think Notre Dame has gone under their points total on FanDuel the last 3 games. I think their over-under points total was over 40 for Boise State, and they scored 28. I think their over-under point total for NC State was like 41.5, and they scored 36. And then against USC, I think their over-under point total was 37.5. And in all 3 of those games, I had at least a drive that fizzled out in the red zone. All 3. So they're going to have to figure out some answers there. I agree with you completely, and definitely something that I hope that they get figured out. But right now, the over-under points total for Notre Dame in that game is set at 42.5. So I guess we'll see what happens.
They better flip and get over that in this game. I'll tell you that right now.
Yep, I agree. My prediction for tomorrow may be indicative of that. So I'm with you completely. Well, folks, that is going to do it for part 2 of today's show. Don't go anywhere. We are wrapping this up with keys to victory on defense. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, in the final part of today's show here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, we are talking the Notre Dame keys to victory for defense. And like we said yesterday, this is the more fascinating matchup between the two. Notre Dame's defense, Boston College offense, because this offense does have pieces that can hurt you, Brian. And this unit is going to have to look to build on some of the things that they did over the past month. It's a very, very interesting conversation with this Notre Dame defense.
Well, one, Boston College's skill talent is better than their rankings would indicate.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it just is. When you look at, we pulled it up yesterday. When you look at their scoring, they are 76th in scoring, 83rd in yards per game, 90th in yards per play. They have better talent than that. 73rd in third down defense. They have better talent than that. It's just they've really struggled up in the trenches, and that's been a big problem for them. But even before I get into the specific keys, this is a truly crucial moment for the Notre Dame defense, who's been playing really good football the last month. We talked about some of the mistakes against BC and USC, and I counted 5 blown coverages in that game. Like, that's inexcusable. And a blown coverage for me is not Christian Gray getting beat for a touchdown. That's just you got beat. It's not Leonard Moore giving up the slant route for 20. That's just you got beat. Just absolute blown coverages. Can't happen. And yet they still held USC to 11 points fewer yards than they had last year. Like USC threw on Notre Dame, but they weren't nearly as good, in my opinion, throwing the football on Notre Dame this year as they were last year. I mean, in this most recent game against USC, Jaden Maeva, same quarterback, went 22 of 42, completed 52.4% of his passes, 7.8 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Last year against USC, Jaden Maeva completed 27 of 49 passes, 55.1% of his passes, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. So, you did a better job against him, not by a ton. You were, what did I say, 7.8 yards per attempt this year. He was only 7.3 last year. Same number of picks, 55% last year, 52% this year. Similar. Last year he gave up 360 yards. This year he gave up 328 yards. So what was the difference? Why were you able to kind of keep them down? Well, last year USC ran for 197 yards against Notre Dame. This year they ran for 68. Right? Like that was the difference. So you were better even in your quote unquote off game against USC this year. You were still way better than you were last year against USC because they also had blown coverages against USC last year. Not as many, but they also got beat more, just physically beat more by USC's receivers last year. But there were several blown coverages last season. But the difference in dominating the run game was key, and you were still a team that came out and attacked. Here's my fear, and this is a fear from ignorance, meaning I don't know what Chris Ash is going to do. Ignorance from the standpoint of a lack of knowledge. I don't know how Chris Ash is going to handle a bye week like this. Is this, okay, we did it your way for 4 weeks. We found some answers. Now let's go back to kind of my way with working some of these things in. And so we see against BC more zone that's passive, right? We see less pressures. We see them trying to do more 4-man blitzes and just kind of sitting back. And that might work against BC, Trev. It might work against BC. But it'll set a bad precedent. Or does Chris Ash say, look, man, like maybe this isn't what I thought I was going to do this year, but this is working. I know my players better. I like some of the pressure packages we've done. We need to tweak some of these things. We need to make some adjustments here. Because in the last few games, they had a lot of blitzes that weren't hitting home. They were getting the quarterbacks out of rhythm, but they weren't getting home. Okay, so instead of not blitzing anymore, let's find some answers to make these even more effective and lean into what's been so good the last couple of weeks while also saying, but we just can't play cover one all day because there's going to be a team like an Ohio State that says we're good enough to just beat you because as good as you are, you don't have anyone that can defend Jeremiah Smith for 60 minutes. And let's just say hypothetically Leonard Moore is good enough to do that. Do you have a number 2 that's good enough to cover Cardinal Tate all game? And you may not. So you've got to have some answers beyond just playing cover one all the time. But within those zones, are they still aggressive? Are you bringing zone fires, or are you just playing, old school cover 2, 5 under, 2 deep, rush 4? Are you playing old school cover 3, 3 deep, 5 under, and you're rushing 3, or 3 deep, 4 under, and you're rushing 4? Or are you kind of mixing those zones up and bringing some zone fire? So, yeah, you drop Boubacar into the flats because you're bringing a line, Kingston off of the edge, or you're doing some slants. I mean, those things are all effective. We've seen Boubacar get a pick 6. He can drop into coverage occasionally. I don't know how much I'd love to do that because he's your best pass rusher. But you get the point what I'm saying, Trev, is like, yes, you need to get better at zone, and I hope they did some things to improve on that during the bye, but the aggressive mentality needs to stay the same. So it's going to go one of two ways. Either A, he's going to kind of slowly try to get back to what they were before because that's what he likes, or B, he's going to lean into what they've been doing the last month while then tweaking it to make it even more effective. And big picture is the latter is what you need to do. I don't know which way he's going to go. I'm hopeful that he's going to go the second way. And I'm not saying this in a way where I don't like Chris Ash and I'm very nervous he's going to go do this. I'm literally saying I don't know. Why are you bringing it up? Because I've seen coaches do this before where they kind of have to do something to survive a stretch. Then coming out of the bye week, they go back to the stuff they were doing because they think that they have enough time to, quote unquote, fix it. I've seen that before. You can't allow this defense to go through that. So if Coach Ash leans into what's worked, just tweak it to make it more effective, then this defense is going to thrive, and these 4 keys are going to be pretty easy to accomplish. If you don't, you may still accomplish these 4 keys, and you still may dominate BC because they're just not very good. And your defensive line should feast on this team. But are you laying a foundation for what's going to get you be effective against Navy, Pitt, but even more importantly, are you laying the foundation for what's going to be effective when you have to go to the postseason and play the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Indianas, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world? That's what Notre Dame is building towards, and that's what's going to be key in this game. That to me is overarching. The most important thing is are we seeing an improved version of what they've been doing, or reverting back to what they did before in hopes of that also being improved? Because that may be good enough to beat the teams left on your schedule. But when you get to the postseason and you got a rematch against Texas A&M, they're not going to beat you as bad as they did last time with the pass game, but they're still going to beat you with the pass game. because that's not who this team needs to be. That's the overarching point number one, Trev.
Yeah, I'm with that completely. And this isn't me putting blind faith into Chris Ash, because I agree with everything that you said. It is a literal just unknown because we haven't seen it. With that being said, I would be shocked if it reverted back.
I'd be a little surprised. Not shocked, but I'd be a little surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be shocked, man. After the result of the last 4 games. Yeah.
Coaches don't always use common sense. Coaches' ego sometimes can absolutely blind common sense.
Sure. I just, after looking at the result of the last 4 games of what you've done on defense, a team hasn't scored on you in the fourth quarter since Purdue. There's only been one team that scored on you in the second half since Purdue, and that was when USC put 11 on the board in the third quarter. I would be legitimately
219 yards in the last 3 games combined.
Yeah, there hasn't been
your last 3 opponents have not averaged over. Not one has averaged over 3 yards a carry. Not one.
Why? If they resorted back, I would legitimately be beside myself. Like if they went back to what they did against Miami, Texas A&M, and Purdue, because that would just be an up top coaching failure. And I'm with you. I just don't know. I'm just talking gut reaction. I would, because of, and I understand they're not results driven, they're process driven. I'm all for that. Well, the process of what you've done the last month to month and a half has given you the results. That so stick to that. So I'm with you. But all things on the table.
So I'll say that kind of leads into the next key, which is more specific to BC, and that is attack BC. And not only from a big picture standpoint, like we just talked about, but a specific here. This is not a good offensive line, Trevor. It isn't. No. And you've got to go at it. I don't think that means like a bunch of 6-man pressures all game, but it definitely means turning your D-line loose for sure, but then also having some pressures beyond just a Drake Bowen middle blitz. Do you guys know why? I want to say this too. I don't mean that negatively, because I get why they do a lot of Drake Bowen crashing on a blitz on first and second down, because it's a run stunt that can then turn into a pass stunt if he drops back to throw. You're basically crashing your middle linebacker to have a better opportunity of having all the inside between tackle to tackle gaps occupied. That's a run stunt. Now, a linebacker is taught that if you are run stunting and you see the quarterback drop the pass, you then start executing your pass rush techniques to get to the quarterback if that's your job. If your job's contained, then you lock out the guy that you're going against and you make sure that you're able to get off the block to get to the quarterback if he scrambles. Just depends on how you teach it. But what I'm saying is, like, I want to see more than just that. That's not a negative thing to say. That's an effective tool, especially when you have a guy like Drake Bowen, who the last 4 games has been really good on that, both run and pass, because he's winning a lot. The thing I also like about Chris Ash is doing with the Drake Bowen sort of run stunts is it's not just running right into the middle of the center. Like we saw the first couple games, whenever they did bring him, he's just running right into the center. They've been letting him win to a side more, and he's been winning to a side more. Like, hey, if you can get past this guy, get past this guy. But if he blocks you, you got to lock up and secure those gaps. And that's why Drake's making a lot more plays at the line of scrimmage and doing a better job with pressures the last couple weeks. But I just want to see a little bit more. Where maybe you drop Drake and you bring a corner fire, a nickel fire. Your will comes on a slant inside on, and then bring your will around, whether it's Jalen Sneed or Kingston or Jaden Osbury. They're all athletic enough and good enough pass rushers to get there. So just having a little bit more to it. That's part one of attacking, and then part two of attacking is just don't sit back in zone all day, and be more willing to say, hey, we're gonna be physical against you. We're gonna impact certain things, and honestly, Trev, I think we should probably bring 0.3 up to 0.2 because I do think it ties in with this a little bit more. So we'll do that here in a second, but I just think overall, you have an ability to really throw BC out of rhythm. Bill O'Brien's offense is built around rhythm. It's an NFL-style offense. It's built around rhythm, getting to landmarks, getting to spots, reading, throwing on, for receivers, quarterback getting to his drops, gather, hitch, throw, or just, drop, plant, throw. It's a lot of it's built around rhythm, throwing within rhythm. And the more you attack it, the more aggressive you are, the more you make it harder for them to play in rhythm. Actually, let's keep 2 and 3 the same because actually they all kind of build towards that. But I think overall, that's a big part of this. If you attack this BC team and all the next 3 keys go in line, you're going to dominate because the next 3 keys are all built around attacking Boston College. And so I think that's my overarching first point, Trevor, is fine. There are definite holes in this protection scheme. But the other part, too, is I want to see the D linemen play angry in this game. And that leads us into kind of attacking is overarching key. But now what does that look like? I think that's where we kind of get into part 2.
Yeah, look, this offensive line can't hold a candle to this defensive line from a talent perspective. They just can't. And I'm sorry that comes off as disrespectful, but you just turn on the film and it's just when you are big combined with not good feet, that is not a good combination for your offensive tackle, specifically the right tackle. I mean, I'm with you completely. Key number 2 in this one is dominating the line of scrimmage in both phases of the game. Continue to shut down the run game. And this is going to be a little bit of a testament to who they have, because right now their best interior run defender arguably is not available for the foreseeable future. You know, there's no timeline for when Gabe Rubio is going to return. We've just been told that he will return. I don't know if that's against Navy. I don't know if that's in the quarterfinals of the college football playoffs. So whenever that could be, you are without Gabe Rubio right now. So in all phases, Jason Onye is going to have to step up. Jared Dawson's going to have to keep doing what he's doing. Donnie Heinisch is going to have to keep doing what he's doing. Elijah Hughes is going to take on a bigger role. Cole Mullins could take on a bigger role. Like we saw in the depth chart, he's now in the 2 deep behind Jason Onye, defensive tackle. So it will be a collective effort on the edge. You said something a couple weeks ago on a show that I couldn't agree with more. The defensive ends this game or this season have done a much better job of setting the edge in the run game of what they did last season. That's going to have to remain because Turbo Richard is a guy where if he gets a crease and he can bounce it outside, he has the speed to go. He does, or at least rip off a big chunk. So dominate it, reset the line of scrimmage in your favor in the run game, and then there should be no excuse as to why they can't get after the passer in this game, in my eyes. So dominating the line of scrimmage is going to be huge.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is such a key part. And then there's the run game part too, but then there's also pressuring the quarterback. Pressuring the quarterback in this particular game is twofold. Grayson James can run. He doesn't scare me like Marcel Reed scares me. He doesn't scare me, like some of the more, he doesn't scare me like Blake Horvath is going to concern me next week. He's a good, solid athlete that can run if you're not disciplined. So attacking the quarterback is, number one, just getting to him. That's obviously the easy part of it. Hit him, pressure him, throw him off rhythm. But there's also a point where you just make him overall uncomfortable with nowhere to go. Try to spin out of the pocket and run outside and see how that goes for you against the Notre Dame's overall team speed. That's not going to go real well. But then also I want to see this team, and this is more of a down the road impact. They got to start finishing at the quarterback better. Like that's a big thing for me is the number of pressures they've gotten in recent weeks compared to the number of sacks they've been able to kind of rack up is too low. Like there should be more. Now, I love the pressures, but I just need to see more hitting on the quarterback. Like last week, for example, against BC or against USC, they had 29 pressures on BC, but they only had 7 hits on the quarterback. I just want to see a little bit more than that. I want to see a couple more sacks there, a couple more hits there. Where getting home to a quarterback doesn't just mean sacks. Getting home to a quarterback also means you're hitting him as he's throwing the football, which usually, not always, but usually means a quarterback is going to be more inaccurate more often in those type of situations. And so, that's kind of where I'm coming from, Trev, is just get home more. And part of being dominant at the point of attack is that. Perfect example. Let's go back to the USC game in 2023. So that team had 33 pressures on 80 snaps. This year's Notre Dame team had 29 pressures on 78 snaps. That's almost an identical number of pressures. Here's the big difference. On only 2 more snaps, only 4 more pressures, but this year's team had 7 total sacks plus hits on the quarterback. That year they had 14 sacks plus hits on the quarterback. That's the difference. That's what I want to see more of from this football team is, yes, it's fine that you are getting to the quarterback and that you're getting quote-unquote pressures, but if it's not a sack or a hit, he's still getting off a clean throw. Now, it may be a rush throw or whatever, but he's getting off a clean throw. I want to see more hits on the quarterback. I want to see the quarterback getting sacked more, being hit more, and 29 pressures. Love that. That's a great number. I can live with that. But I just want to see it result in more, okay, the quarterback's going down. You had 23 pressures on C.J. Bailey the week before on only 61 snaps. So that's a similar rate. You had 17 fewer snaps against NC State, but only 6 fewer hits. 6 fewer pressures. That's a very good rate. You still only had 6 hits on the quarterback. You had 4 sacks and 2 hits. So there's more opportunities there for this defense to be there. Against Boise, you had 37 pressures on 78 snaps. That's a tremendous rate. You only had 8 hits on the quarterback. So I want to see this D-line also start to land some of these pressures more. They're getting closer. They're really getting closer. I want to see them land some more of those. And I think this is a perfect game to see that happen. A perfect game to see that happen. Yeah, it really is. And so shut down the run game, make them one-dimensional, and then heat up the quarterback with your front and your pressure package. But on this particular key, it's your front. This is a game where the front 4 can do more. Like, this is actually not a game that I'm like, if I don't see Chris Ash blitz 65% of the time, I'm going to be pissed and I'm going to be like, oh, it's old. No, I don't think you have to blitz 60% of the time or even 50% of the time. Being aggressive doesn't just mean you're bringing 5 and 6 every play. Being aggressive means you're attacking the defense. You're shooting your line. You are bringing your slants and stunts. You're being more tight with your coverages, even in zone or man. But there are times in this game where you can say, "Hey, we're gonna drop 4 and take away the throwing lanes because our front can dominate their front or should dominate their front." And so I want to see that in this game, Trev. Absolutely want to see that in this game.
Another aspect to attacking, overarching theme here for the keys to victory on defense. They're also going to have to continue attacking in the pass game, which is something that we talked about earlier. And one of those is limiting the quick game. You have to put Grayson James in a position to throw the football down the field. I think that's where Notre Dame can put themselves into advantageous situations to get some turnovers, because that's one thing that this Boston College team has not done well this year is take care of the football. They rank 120th in the country in turnovers. 50% of their turnovers have been interceptions. They rank 92nd in the country in interceptions thrown this season. So I'm with you. Remaining aggressive in coverage is going to be huge. You have to limit the quick game in this one, though.
Yeah, that's a big part of it because they're going to want to come out and have some early down, move the chain moments. That's what they're going to want to do. Dylan Lonergan threw 3 interceptions in 197 attempts this year. Grayson James has thrown 3 interceptions in 88 attempts this year. He's threw 2 in the last game. He started 2 games. He's thrown 5 touchdowns and 2 picks, against UConn and Louisville. So you got to get him out of rhythm. You can't let him get comfortable in the passing game. And how do you get comfortable? Coming out, throwing a bunch of pivot routes, slants, hitches, out cuts, easy access throws, screen game that you're off, you're playing cover 3, you throw a little quick screen and you're able to get 6 or 7 yards out of it, right? Those are the things that you can't do. The longer he holds the ball, the greater chances that one of 2 things are going to happen. You get your hands on the football or you get your hands on him. Either one. Yep. And some of those hands on the football are going to result in pass breakup. Some of them are going to result in interceptions, Trev. But it's an overall level of pass game disruption. If you disrupt off the snap, you can disrupt when the ball's in the air. And that's something that I absolutely believe in. And why do I believe that? Because I've seen that from an offensive point of view. The more you get hands on, the more you disrupt us off the line, the more disruptive you can be in route. Throws off timing, gets the quarterback to go off of reads a little bit quicker. It speeds up his mental process because he doesn't have those easy access throws. He doesn't have those easy checkdowns, those free release routes where, hey, I just drop back, hit my drop, and I know that curl's coming open right in that zone between those two guys because the one guy's just getting to the curl flat without even any thought process to the receiver. The other guy's just getting to his hook curl. Any thought process to getting to the receiver, squeezing off the route, closing off the route, and it's just boom. It's like playing catch. And that's what was happening in Notre Dame the first 3 games and really the first 4 games, but just Taylor Green didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were there. It didn't really start to change until the Boise game. You say, well, Maddox is not very good. So did that really, was that just a Boise game? Remember we said at the time, Trev, is this just a Boise adjustment or is this overall? Well, then they went and did that to C.J. Bailey, who's a much better player than Maddox Madsen. All right, cool. Then they did it to a degree against Jaden Maeva. And that's why Jaden Maeva was less efficient than he's really been all season, Trevor, because they took that away. They took away his ability to get the quick game out and throw a bunch of screens and do all those type of things. And, this is a guy that on the season is completing 68% of his passes. In the 6 games prior to Notre Dame, he completed 83.3, 66.7, 60.7, 76.9, 69.8, and 78.1 yards per completion percentage. His yards per attempt were 16.4, 17.2, 10.1, 9, 8.5, 8.3. He'd only thrown 2 interceptions all year. Against Notre Dame, he went 52.4%, 7.8 yards per attempt. His lowest passer rating of the season was 145.31. His next lowest was 151.58. His next lowest was 162.07. He was 124.17 against Notre Dame. I've said this a lot, Trev. I don't care as much about yards. If you run enough plays, you're going to get your yards. I care about efficiency. If you're going to get 328 yards, then do it on 45, 50, 48 pass attempts. In USC's case, it was 42. And a lot of that came with blown coverages. If you don't blow coverages, USC's not getting to 328 yards because the game's done by the middle of the third quarter, and you're just pinning your ears back and going after them.
Yeah.
But in this instance, Trev, it's about in this game, this is not a guy that you want to let just get into a rhythm because he's a quarterback he's an okay quarterback, Trev. That's it. He's just an okay quarterback. He's not bad. He's not great either. He's just kind of an okay quarterback, but he's an experienced quarterback. He's thrown 88 passes this year, threw 166 passes last year. He's had some good moments. Go watch the bowl game last year. He threw for over 300 yards against Nebraska. He averaged 9 yards an attempt and threw for 253 yards in a win over Pitt last year. Who was, at the time, you're thinking, well, that's going to be that's going to probably be a Pitt win. He's a kid that's done some good things. He's played at SMU, who's ranked last year when they played. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. You have to overwhelm him. And if you can overwhelm him, take away the quick game, force him to hold the football, he's gonna act like most quarterbacks act when they're getting harassed, which is sped up throws, off target throws, breakups, interceptions, sacks, and hits. That's what it's going to be. But you've got to be willing to heat them up, and you've got to be willing to take away the quick game. I don't want to see them out there letting Lewis Bond catch 9 balls for 82 yards. That won't kill you, but that's going to move the chains and give them more chances to then on 2nd and 2 throw that bomb to Reed Harris. That's what I'm concerned about. Take those throws away, make him beat you down the field. He's got a good arm. It's not that he can't throw the ball down the field, Trev. I'm not saying that at all. He's hit 8 deep or actually that's Dylan Lonergan, but Grayson James has hit he has 2. He's hit 8 deep shots already. I mean, think about that. Dylan Lonergan hit 8 in 6 starts, and he's hit 8 in 2 starts and some mop-up time. He can throw the ball down the field. It's not that. It's that if he can't throw the quick game and he has to hold the ball and throw it down the field, he's not going to have time against Notre Dame.
No, if you make Grayson James uncomfortable, he's just going to start forcing the ball to Lewis Bond. We said that yesterday. Lewis Bond is by far the most targeted receiver on this team, by a lot. He has the most receptions on this team, by a lot. He has 56 receptions on the season. Next closest guy is 31, 25 less than what he does in the same amount of games. If Grayson James gets uncomfortable, and this is one of the reasons why Bill O'Brien went away from Dylan Lonergan, is because he, young quarterback locked in on a receiver. Well, that's what Grayson James does as well when he gets pressured. So you're going to give yourself multiple opportunities at the football. Whoever is covering Lewis Bond if you make him uncomfortable. That is going to be absolutely, and to your point, it all ties into taking away the quick game. And that's when you have to, that's when we get in the conversation of marrying up your front with your coverage. Like we saw against Taylor Green, if a quarterback's getting the ball out in less than a second, you don't have the hope of a pass rush to get home. So taking away the quick game is definitely going to aid in that. I agree 100%. Last key to victory on defense here, Brian, is be smart. Be smart and don't play hero ball. It's something that you talked about in the opening segment of today's show. So talk us through it, in a little bit more depth. Being smart, don't try to play hero ball.
In a game like this, when I say be smart, it's about do your job and do your job the way you're taught to do your job. Meaning, I know I can abuse this offensive tackle. So I'm going to put this inside spin move on him, and I'm going to make him look bad in a play where your job is to protect C-gap. So you spin inside, and now the outside is open. The quarterback takes off running, and he gets outside of you. I think I can jump this slant route. I'm going to go for it. I think I get me a pick six in this game. We're up 24-7. I can get me a pick six. I'm going to jump this route when your job may not be to jump that route. Or you're taught in a way where jump that route if you're here, but if you're here, you close on the route and you make the tackle or you break the pass. You play through the ball. You think of the play. Not that Christian Gray was doing this. I'm not saying that, but I'm using this particular play as an example. I think it was Boise where Christian jumped a slant route and almost picked it, but he didn't. He missed and the guy went running. I'm not saying Christian was playing hero ball. I think Christian kind of got caught between, I think I can jump it, and then but he was a second late. I'm using that type of play to say when you do play hero ball, there's more plays like this. I'm going to go for this big hit. I'm going to light this guy up, but I don't wrap up, and that guy bounces off of me and he runs for 12 yards in the play that should have only gone for 2. I'm going to try to drive on this route and make a big play, and I miss. Now, am I saying so you don't want them to make big plays? No, make big plays, but if you play within the system and you play smart, you're talented enough that you're going to be in position to make big plays. When you try to make a big play is when you're going outside the system, you're going outside what you're taught to do to try to make a big play. I'm going to try to lay this receiver out, and then you miss, and he's taking off running. That's what I'm talking about, because you can't let – and this goes back to what we said in the team goals. You have to make BC earn every yard they get. Because here's the key, fellas. If you make them earn every yard you get, and you've got an aggressive scheme, you dominate the line of scrimmage, you limit the quick game, guess what? They're not going to get a lot of yards. They're going to dominate in that regard. You are. But if you start trying to play hero ball, I'm going to go try to make a play here, I lose contain. I'm going to go try to make a play here, I miss on the slant. I'm going to go try to make a play here, and I miss a tackle. I get a 15-yard penalty and converts a 3rd and 9 that would have been I'm going to lay this guy out. He's been talking trash. So comes across, ball sails, and you drill him. 15 yards. Okay, do you feel better now? You laid the guy out, but now it's 1st down, and they got the ball at midfield when we should be getting the ball back. And we're up 24-7. That gives them a 1st down with a minute left. They go down and make a field goal at the end of the half. They get the ball to start. They go down and score. Now all of a sudden it's 24-17 instead of 24-0 or 24-7, where we're getting the ball back with a minute left, and CJ can take us down the field and get some points. Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? So within the framework of what you do, you're talented enough to make a play. So when you see a Don Schuler rob down in coverage, jump an in cut, and pick it off, he's not playing hero ball. He's a smart, instinctive player that's being taught what to do. He's being schemed up what to do. And then within the framework, he jumps the quarterback's route, picks it off, takes it back. That's a great play by a talented player within the structure of what you're trying to do defensively. It's not, I'm supposed to be playing cover 2, but I see that dig route coming in, and so I'm going to drive on the dig route. Hey, guess what, buddy? They're running a post route behind you. So the corner thinks that you're going to be playing over the top, but you are trying to play hero ball, and that post route behind it goes for a touchdown. That's hero ball. Right? Robbing down and underneath and jumping that dig route and taking the ball and picking it off, that's a smart, instinctive play by a great athlete and a good call. Because that's what you were supposed to do, and you just did it well. Jump the slant route if you get the read on it and you do it the way you're taught to do it, and you know you can get it in your chest. Those are the things I'm talking about, Trev. If you play smart, you play your game, stay within the structure of the defense, you're going to dominate BC, assuming the other things are true from a schematic and structural standpoint. That's the thing, is just don't give them those dumb yards because you're trying to go out. I've done this. So we're playing a team my senior year of high school, Trev, and the quarterback's terrible. And I've been just sitting on slant routes all day. And I'm like, I know I can get one. And so I bid on a couple and, broke it up. But if they'd have had a good team and run a sluggo on me, I'm toast. And I eventually stepped in front of one and ran it back to the house in a game where we blew them out. But that was me playing hero ball in a game because the team sucked. I had already caught 4 touchdown passes. We're blowing this team out. That's playing hero ball. But you do that against in the Division I game against a Division I team, that gets you beat for a big play. And that's how a team can stay in the game. So those things that I want to see here, Trev, is you can make a ton of plays within the framework of the defense if you're in the right position because you're a great player and a great athlete. Don't try to do things outside the structure. That's when you give up big plays and dumb plays. And if you don't give up those, they have no chance. No chance to score anywhere close to enough points to win, if they can score at all.
No. I mean, right now on FanDuel, their over-under points total in the first half is 6.5. Their total for the game is set at 13.5. They're not expecting this to be any sort of a high-scoring game. I could very well see it being a lot of the same, if I'm just being 100% honest. The only other thing that I have to add here, Brian, because I agree with everything that you said, this team has to get better at tackling. They just do. There was a small window of time for about 3 games in the regular season where they were pretty good tacklers. Maybe you could make the argument for about 3 games, really, if you think about it. I mean, last 2 games, they missed 23 total tackles against NC State and USC. I'm willing to concede that, it's the end of a long 6-game-in-a-row stretch. You're grueling to get to the bye. People are banged up. Okay. But like we said yesterday, this group of skilled players for Boston College can hurt you in the open field. Don't look at the record. Don't look at the stats and the graphics that we've put up. I mean, please look at them. It took us some time to put those together. But don't let that be an indictment of what you think about their skilled players. Don't let that be an indictment, because Lewis Bond and Reed Harris and Jeremiah Franklin and Turbo Richard can hurt you in the open field if you don't bring your feet with you, drive with your hips, and tackle. Be sure tacklers.
Right. Yeah, don't assume they're not good because the numbers aren't good, because the numbers aren't good because other things aren't good. Yes. The O-line's not good. Right? Don't assume that it's, this guy can't hurt me. This guy can't beat me. They shouldn't assume that, and fans shouldn't assume that. So, yeah, that's a great point, Trev.
Make sure you have to tackle, because, again, you're laying the groundwork for what's going to happen over the next 5 games. And you could argue that despite their record, I don't know, outside of Pitt, if between, Syracuse, Navy, Stanford, if all encompassing, you're going to go up against a group of skilled guys like this. Like Navy potentially, but I'm talking running backs, tight ends, and receivers all combined. I don't think you're getting that against Stanford. I like Syracuse's wide receivers. Yeah, really just Pitt.
Only Pitt.
And so you're going to have to be able to tackle well in this one. That's for sure. That is my last key. But Brian, I agree with everything that you said. And it all goes back to one of the main points we talked about in the first segment of the show. Being disciplined means that you're not going out there and trying to play hero ball. Yeah. It does. And so that's going to be huge.
And the thing that's frustrating as a coach is you look at players like, dude, you would have made that play if you'd have just done what we told you to do. You'd still have a chance to make plays like that. Mm-hmm. But because you went outside of what we asked you to do, we're not asking you to do it just because. I just felt like having you go here on this particular play. There's a reason for it. Stay within the structure, and you'll get those chances to make those plays.
Sometimes hero ball is just doing your job.
Yep.
Making the hero play, I guess. Hero ball is different. Making the hero play is just doing your job. Agreed.
Doing it well.
Brian, we do have a super chat before we get out of here. I believe. I think it's from Michael
S. Yeah.
Thank you for the super chat, Michael. Hear a lot about Ohio State's passing game, but little about the run game. How do they compare to Notre Dame's running and overall offensive output?
Well, I mean, they've actually ran the ball a pretty decent amount this year. There's some interesting conversation going on about Ohio State in that they are. I think Ohio State knows that their schedule is pretty weak, and I think they know they can kind of roll the ball out and beat teams. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that, like, as long as they don't do dumb things, they're gonna whoop the teams in their schedule. And so you're seeing a lot of Notre Dame, Ohio State really slowing the game down and not playing it, like running a lot of plays and just like I said, overall really slowing things down. And the result has been a more methodical game is what people are, is sort of the accusation against them. And then you look at their effectiveness running the football. They've been a solid rushing team this year. They're averaging 151.7 yards per game, 4.6 yards per carry. They've run the ball well at times. Ran it on Grambling in Ohio. Haven't run it really well against Power 4 teams. 77 against Texas and 98 against Wisconsin. So it hasn't been great. But I don't know that they're necessarily trying. Like, when I watch them play, they don't look like a team that's trying to establish the ground game. It's just a compliment to their ability to throw the football. That's really it. And so, like, they're nowhere in the same league as Notre Dame running the football. They don't have the talent Notre Dame has at running back. Their top rusher right now is a true freshman, Bo Jackson, who's averaging about 6.4 yards per carry. But even him, it's like his 6.14 yards per carry is due in part to the fact that he had 9 carries for 108 yards against Grambling, 9 carries for 109 yards against Ohio. The next 4 games against Power 4 teams, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin, he's been 4-7, 4-9, 4-7, and 2-6. So they're not a great rushing team. And this is the flaw with Ohio State. This is not the same offense it was last year. They don't have the backs they have last year. Their offensive line's not as good. Their quarterback is dynamic, as he can make plays with his arm and his legs, and they have a great receiving core. But this year's Ohio State team is built different than last year's team. Last year's team was incredibly balanced, really good offense, great defense. This year, it's about elite defense. Like, we're not going to go out there, and our offense is not going to make a mistake that gives you a chance to score on a short field, because we don't think you can score on a 60-plus yard drive. And you know what? Most teams can't against this defense. I mean, it's really been impressive. They've given up they've given up double digits in one game this year. And that was a road game against a top 25 team. So, like, I think that they are leaning into who they are, Trev. They're not trying to say, let's replicate who we were last year. They're saying, hey, who are we now? And just for the record, the game in which they gave up 16 points against Illinois, they gave up 13 in the second half. And Illinois scored with 4:25 left to make it, to get them to 16. So they've been dominant. And I just think their offensive game plan is, we'll pound the ball. We'll let Julian make some plays. We'll let our receivers make some plays. And once we get to 17, you can't beat us. Now, I'm curious how that's going to go in the postseason when they play better teams. But for now, it's worked for them, and they've been dominant that way. So I don't know that they're a team that really cares about being a high-octane, score 45 points a game offense. I think their job is, do your job, limit the game, and let our elite defense just go rip this team up, because they can't score on us. It's almost like when we get to think about this. If they only scored 10 points in every single game they played this year, if they only scored 10 points in every game, they'd be 6-1 right now.
It's Iowa's dream.
Yeah, exactly. Kirk Ferentz is just like, ooh, we can do that? You can do no, Kirk, you can't do that. You don't have Ohio State players. But yeah, I think so. It's like, so you go out there and you try to be all cute on offense, and then your redshirt freshman throws a pick and gives them the ball at the 13 or 15 or 25 yard line. No, that's not it. Just go out there and you have a great defense, dominate with it. Agreed. That's the key. That's what I think Ohio State's trying to do.
I'm with you. Same page there, man. Same page. Well, folks, that's going to do it here for us today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. We went through keys to victory. Tomorrow, we will be back to give our game predictions, game records. We're going to spend the rest of the day talking some ball. Tonight, here in about a couple hours, the guys are going live on IB Nation Sports Beat for their midweek mailbag, so be sure to tune in for that as well. On your way out of here, be sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the CFB Nation channel. Like I said, Bill Bender and Bill Trocchi are going live tomorrow morning at 9:30. And then tomorrow evening, Vince and I are going live at 8 p.m. for this week's edition of the Spread Option. So not going to want to miss either of those. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. Spread the word about us. Anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football, bring them on in. Always looking to make that IB community that much bigger. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards@irishbreakdown.com. So until tomorrow, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.